big thank you for the words of welcome. Stéphane, Nathalie, Maxime, I'm sorry we have a bit of pressure because we need to tackle one of the most complicated topics and one of the most important ones. If there's no trust, nothing we heard about today will ever happen and ever materialize. When we talk about trustworthy AI, just to clarify the terms, there's obviously the legal bedrock, regulation, the reliability of the models. But behind this term, there's also trust in AI, which is subjective, which is us with every user. And it's almost like a call for action. And these are the two terms and two definitions we'll keep in mind. So first question, Nathalie, regulation. We hear a lot about regulation. What's the latest? What is the tone of regulation on AI? What is coming?
Thank you. The interplay between AI and regulation may be summarized in 3 high points. First of all, thank you. First of all the developed countries have already established or intend to establish regulation. And secondly, the historic opposition between Europe perceived as pro-regulation and other countries, and specific US perceived as pro-innovation, is more and more outdated every week because, for example, for the US, there is a framework for AI and a federal framework, and many member states every week, as for example Colorado or Florida, establish new regulation, and this new regulation is much inspired by our AI Act, because as you know, and now is famous, our famous AI Act is already definitive, and in few days the text will be published. All these regulations have also some similarity. In all cases, the purpose of the regulation is trustworthy. In all cases, underlying or sometimes claimed, for example, AI Act, the claim purpose is trustworthy. Secondly, this point is really specific. All this regulation is product regulation. So the regulation included end-to-end obligation and with a regulatory tag. All the regulation include some specific issue for generative AI, and not all, but in most of the case, all this the regulation are driven by risk profile of the product. So the more you are involving in the R&D product, the higher your obligation will be, and the higher the risk profile of the product is, the strict obligation you will have. But when I say that, the trustworthy is not only driven by the regulation. You have also ethics and environmental and social well-being. So we need to not only focus on regulatory aspects if we want to implement trustworthy. But on this point, I think my two friends of the day will explain more than me.
Thank you, Nathalie. And so question for you, Stéphane. At L'Oréal, you've been rolling out a number of AI products for employees, for consumers. In the recent years, what have you changed in how you develop AI products or scale AI products to make sure AI is trustworthy to all?
Yeah, I think it's true that we've been using AI for quite a while, and I have to say it was easier in the days because before the LLMs and the Gen AI, trust was there. We were deploying AI solution for supply chain, for doing some simple analysis, and we had trust. With Gen AI, that's where we have a new legal framework. but we also a lot of mistrust from consumers and from employees. You know, when Google search is now suggesting to use glue to put cheese on pizza, you know, this kind of alienation is creating a lot of mistrust on AI, which we didn't have before. So for a group like L'Oréal, you know, 41 billion, where reputation is key, should we stop doing AI because it's too dangerous? Because trust is no longer there? So the choice we have made is no. We want and we will continue to do AI, including Gen AI. And I'll give you two examples of what we are doing, and I'll explain why we've made that decision. We are using AI and Gen AI for our researchers to prepare what we call scientific dossier, which is, you know, the dossier that we will submit to sustain our claims from a given product. You know, that's a very strong process in the company, but we are using a Gen AI. And we've also taken the challenge of doing a virtual conversational agent using LLM and Gen AI for the largest brand of the group, L'Oréal Paris, which is a 7 billion brand in the biggest market in the world, which is the US. So we are going big. But to your question, what have we changed? First, we have defined some key principles that we will follow. And each of the applications that we develop will be monitored around these principles. Simple things, I won't quote all of them, but human supervision. Then there needs to be a man in the loop. The final say is a human. Transparency, we need to be able to explain the output of the model versus the data. And obviously measuring the environmental footprint of the models. So for each of the applications that we develop, that's what we do. But that also takes investing in talents. So you need to have the data scientists, the AI and ML engineers that can understand what is behind the LLM, even if you rely on OpenAI or Google or Microsoft. And it also requires a lot of training for the employees. Because Gen AI can sound a little magic, but it's not. You need to understand what is behind the magic.
Thank you, Stéphane. Maxime, trust in AI eventually is an enabler for scale. Scaling AI use cases is probably the toughest task right now, all CDOs have. At Sodexo, what have you done to increase the level of trust for adoption for scale?
Yes, just maybe a few words about what is AI at Sodexo. So at Sodexo, we serve every day 80 million consumers on more than 30,000 sites that are very different from each other. So it can be corporate offices, senior living houses, stadiums, hospitals. And we also operate in a very decentralized way into 45 countries, which means that our frontline teams on site are the ones that are guaranteeing the quality of service. And obviously, what is served every day to the 80 million consumers is not just about cooking. It's also about a lot of upstream steps that are critical for the success of the service we deliver to our consumers. It can be how we predict the demand to better produce, how we understand the consumer behavior and preferences, how we ensure that we set the right price, how we share to the consumer the right information on the impact on what they buy on the planet and on their health. So this means that for Sodexo, AI is a key enabler to optimize these steps and get some operational efficiency and growth impact. And then, as you said, if we want to have impact at scale, we need to instill a new culture and create that level of trust with the end users so we can really have the impact at scale and demonstrate optimization at Sodexo. And to do that, we've followed 3 steps. The first one is getting a full commitment from the executive committee. So I was with them 2 weeks ago in Seattle. We used 2 days of their time to really help them understand what is the level of commitment we expect from them to drive this transformation and help the Sodexo employee understand what is the benefits for them. On top of that, what we do is that we train our top 200 executives on what is their role as leader to create that right level of trust with the employees. Then the second pillar we use is obviously training, very connected to what Stéphane just shared. We are convinced that the training is the only way that will help the end users and employees use the AI in the best way with the right level of trust. And as an example, into the first wave of the Copilot deployment we have, with more than 1,000 employees, we've created a mandatory training, but also set up the communities across different personas so they can share between themselves and share on what they see as benefits, but also as key threats around, for example, hallucination. And the last part, which is obviously very important, is trust comes to the business with the value you bring to them. And so on any AI product we build, we have these tangible operational and business KPIs that are attached to the product streams and value streams, from the scoping to the scale, which is the only way to demonstrate the value and the trust to the sponsor, the business owners, but also the employees.
Very clear, and the role of the CEO and the entire executive committee, and Stéphane, you can confirm, is so critical on that journey. So maybe follow-up question, both for you, Maxime and Stéphane. What are the enablers, both in terms of people, talents, and in terms of tech, to make and increase the level of trust on AI and to make trustworthy AI a reality? What are these enablers you need to put in place?
So I'll start with the tech part. What is very difficult is to have an exhaustive view of all of your AI, the AI models that you have been developing, and to making sure that you can follow them. And at the beginning, when they are born, so that's normally okay, because you have processes to validate, because you need to put budget, but also during their life cycle, and that's where it becomes very tricky. And the difficulties is that you need to follow them from inception till their end. They are evolving because you are training them, you're having new data, and you need to make sure that you follow that. And on top of it, the regulations and the framework of the trustworthy AI is also evolving. So that's where, and we have to say that we are still at the beginning of that journey. But my strong belief is that, if you want to follow that on Excel or that won't work. So you need to invest into AI, Gen AI, MLOps, or solution that will help you to follow the life cycle of these models, and also check regularly the compliance with evolution in regulation. So the first one, invest in tools, and I know that there are some solutions, and Nathalie will talk about it, but I think that's quite important. And the second element is invest in talents, and I think when Gen AI came up, there was that belief that we don't need data scientists anymore. It's all in the box. You just use it's a low code or low code AI, so you don't need to understand. You just apply. I'm a strong believer that this is wrong. That for a company like us, you need to have people that really understand what is a little bit behind the box, because doing RAG, fine tuning, needs some expertise, and you need to master what you are doing. So for me, the two tips I would give: find a tool on the market to help you manage all these new models, and invest in the right talents.
And maybe just to complement what Stéphane just said, at Sodexo we had 3 changes. So the first one is around the way we evolve the collaboration with the data protection and legal teams to create that right level of trust. Historically, we were very close to these central teams, and now we are progressively implementing new roles that are product compliant roles that are fully embedded into the product squads and supporting them in the way they design and develop these AI products in the right way. So by design, they are trustful. The second thing we change is the focus we have now on the user experience and user interface. So obviously, historically, we were very focused on this part, but now we have a different angle on that, especially on the user interface. So we need to ensure that in the way we display the recommendation of the AI to the end user, we share with them key information, such as the driver of the recommendation, so they can put on top of the AI their business sense to understand if that makes sense or not. And the second thing is everything that is a proxy of a confidence score, which gives the ability for the end user to make the right decision on the way they use the AI. And the third thing we change is on the governance, and very connected to what Stéphane just shared. With Gen AI, it's a complete new era on how you support the business make the right decisions. And we've set up very strong local, regional, and global governances that are not well equipped yet in terms of technology to fulfill three main objectives. The first one, protect Sodexo asset. Obviously, we don't want anyone to use Gen AI solution in the wrong way. We don't want to give a strategic asset to external partners. So this is the first thing we look from these governances. The second thing we look at is obviously the way, and we support the business into understanding the performance they can get from the models in reality. So creating the right level of trust between the commercial pitch that is shared by the external provider and what is the reality in terms of impact for Sodexo. And the third thing and objective we have in these governances is to help the business understand and anticipate what are the key business challenge they need to face. And they need to face it from the beginning. Otherwise, they will buy a new solution, they will deploy a new solution without any tangible impact and without the right level of trust from the Sodexo employee.
Thank you, Maxime. And maybe last question for you, Nathalie. As a lawyer, but also as the co-founder of an AI management system, and even that term is a new concept, what is an AI management system? Can you explain in simple words what that is?
Yes, sure. As we said just a few minutes ago, AI now is a regulated product. So company and teams are faced to several challenges. There is no compliance standard actually. The authorities just designate a few days or a few weeks ago, so we doesn't have any feedback of decision making. And the obligation is multi-sources, and the proof is very difficult to action, is strict to actionable. So the one and only solution, I believe, is to implement an AIMS. So AIMS, it's a sort of a kind of IMS, but they fully dedicate to the AI projects with 4 core features. First, repository, second one, assessment, third one, action plan, and the last one, it's post-marketing monitoring, because there is a legal obligation to implement a regular check of the project. And AI become, I think today, all people said that AI will become a strategic component of a company, of the productivity, of the innovation, as HR or finance or product. But for clients, we have CRM. For production, we have ERP. For HR, we have HRIS. So we think that for AI, we need IAMS.
Very clear. And maybe just to completely close and finish, any practical tip you share to your wife, to your friends, on to increase the level of trust of AI? Any small stories, very practical tips?
I think the practical tip is to use it. Every day in your everyday life, and to always keep your critical eyes on the output. But you know, I'll tell you a little anecdote. My son is going to study to the US next year, and he has to take a lot of math tests. And you know, I was using ChatGPT in parallel just to check And I think it's giving most of the time, 99%, very good results.
And my advice is very similar to the one from Stéphane. So, and I summarize that with use. Step back. That's absolutely critical that you have the right level of stepping back on the way you use and understand the way you need to change your ways of working to really have positive benefits for you. So that's my advice.
Nathalie?
Yes, test and learn and sure keep your sovereignty in the using.
Thank you very much.